At the bottom of a wide green hill, there was a small town with stone streets, low roofs, and narrow lanes that curved in calm, easy lines. The town was not crowded. Its buildings stood close enough to feel connected, but not so close that they pressed against one another. Between them were little paths, short walls, window boxes, and steps worn smooth by many years of use. At the highest point of the town square stood a clock tower made of pale stone. The tower was not grand, but it was older than every house around it, and its face looked over the whole town. Its clock hands moved more slowly than other clocks. Not broken, not stuck, only slow. Because of that, everything in the town below seemed to follow a gentler pace. Doors closed softly. Lamps were lit without hurry. Baskets were set down carefully. Even the evening light seemed to drift over the rooftops more slowly there, as if the town had made a quiet agreement with time itself. The clock tower stood at the center of a round square paved with flat gray stones. In the middle of the square was a dry fountain with a wide basin and a low rim. Benches sat around it in even spaces. A row of little shops faced the square. A bakery with a painted sign, a bookshop with a narrow front window, a tailor with dark blue shutters, and a cafe with 4 round tables kept under a striped awning. Above all of them rose the slow clock. Its face was cream-colored, its numbers simple and dark, and its hands were long and black. The minute hand moved, but with such calm slowness that it could be watched for a long time before any change became clear. In the evening, when warm light began to show in the shop windows, the tower face grew pale against the deepening sky. Then the square lamps came on one by one, and the shadow of the clock tower stretched across the stones like a quiet mark. The town did not seem troubled by the clock's pace. It simply matched it. As the sky deepened from soft gold to blue-gray, the narrow streets around the square settled into evening. Small lamps above doors gave off a warm glow. Curtains were drawn partway across windows. A cat crossed one lane and paused beside a flower pot before slipping through an open gate. A bicycle leaned against a wall near the baker's side door. Its front wheel turned slightly toward the gutter. The gutters were shallow and lined with smooth stones, and the last light of day rested there in pale strips. One lane curved uphill toward the tower steps. Another passed behind the bookshop and led toward a small bridge over a narrow canal. The canal was quiet and dark, and its water reflected windows as long, soft lines. Somewhere deeper in the town, a gate clicked shut. Then all was still again. Nothing in the streets felt empty. The stillness held shape and weight, like folded cloth laid gently over the stones. Above the roofs, the clock tower rose in simple calm, its hands still moving at their quiet pace. The bookshop on the square had a narrow front and deep shelves inside. Its front window held 3 books, standing upright beside a brass lamp with a soft yellow shade. One book had a dark green cover, one was pale blue, and one was bound in brown cloth. A small card stood beside them with neat writing that could only be read from very close. At this hour, the shop was closed, but the lamp inside still glowed, lighting the display and part of a wooden shelf behind it. Through the glass, rows of book spines could be seen, all in different shades, all lined closely together. The window glass also reflected the square outside, so the pale face of the clock tower seemed to float among the shelves. Sometimes the slow hand appeared to rest between 2 rows of books, as if time itself had stepped inside and taken a seat there. The window did not change much from night to night. It held the same books, the same lamp, the same calm arrangement. The town seemed full of such careful stillness. Across the square, the bakery kept a small light above its back doorway, even after the front was shut. The doorway opened to a side lane, where crates were stacked against the wall and empty baskets rested upside down on a bench. Through the lower window, a little warmth still showed from inside. Wooden trays leaned against a shelf. Copper pans hung in a row. A cloth was draped over a bowl on a work table. The place looked paused rather than empty, as if the last task had been finished only moments earlier, and the room had chosen to rest exactly as it was. Near the back step stood 2 flower pots with pale herbs that released a faint, clean smell in the evening air. Above the doorway, the warm light made a soft shape on the stone wall, and moths sometimes circled through it once or twice before drifting away again. The lane behind the bakery was narrow and quiet. From there, the tower could still be seen above the roofs, and its slow clock remained visible between 2 chimneys. Inside the tower, a spiral stair rose in patient circles from the ground floor to the clock room above. The steps were worn at the center, where many feet had passed over many years. Their edges were rounded, and the iron handrail beside them had been polished smooth by hands sliding along it. Narrow windows cut into the stone let in thin strips of fading light. Higher up, the air grew cooler and quieter. Dust rested on the window ledges in soft lines. On one landing stood a small wooden stool and a shelf holding 2 oil cans, a folded cloth, and a tin box with a lid that fit tightly. The stair did not creak much. It simply curved upward through the tower, calm and sure. At the top was the clock room, where the gears turned. They did not turn loudly. Their sound was more like a slow metal breathing, steady and low. The town below could not hear it clearly, yet everything there seemed to know it was happening, and to settle around it with the same unhurried rhythm. The clock room was small and round, with beams crossing overhead and a great set of gears built into the center. Some were wide and heavy. Others were narrow and fine. Their metal surfaces held a dull shine where the light from an oil lamp touched them. The lamp sat on a ledge near the wall and made long shadows between the gear teeth. The largest wheel turned almost too slowly to notice. Then, after a while, it became clear that it had moved just a little, and that the smaller wheels around it had moved too. There was no rush in the machine. The turning seemed steady and thoughtful, as if each piece waited for the one beside it before taking its next step. Through the narrow glass of the clock face, the town square could be seen below, small and warm with lamplight. From this height, the benches, fountain, awning, and little shop roofs seemed arranged like objects on a table. Above them all, the slow hands crossed the pale face and kept their careful path. Behind the square, one of the lanes sloped down toward a stone canal that passed through the town in a quiet bend. The canal was narrow enough for the opposite wall to be seen clearly, yet wide enough for reflections to stretch and ripple when the water moved. A low bridge crossed it near the tailor's shop. The bridge was made of smooth stone blocks with a simple rail on each side. At night, a lantern hung under the center of the arch and cast a soft oval of light onto the water below. In that light, the canal looked like dark glass, with gold lines moving through it. A few little boats were tied farther along where the banks widened. Their ropes dipped and lifted with faint motion. One boat held an empty basket and a rolled cloth. Another had a blue stripe painted along its side. The canal carried the town's lights gently, as if taking them one by one beneath the bridge and around the bend. Above it, the slow clock tower remained visible between roofs and chimneys. The cafe in the square was closed for the night, but one lamp still burned over the counter inside. Through the front glass, the little round tables could be seen standing in neat order, their chairs tucked in, cups hung upside down above the counter, white and clean, making a row of curved shadows under the lamp. A chalkboard menu stood near the door, with neat writing left from the day. The awning outside moved only a little when air passed through the square. One potted tree stood beside the entrance, its leaves small and dark and glossy in the lamplight. The cafe's clock, hanging above a shelf of jars, showed a different time from the tower. It was faster, yet even that difference did not disturb the room. The cafe, like the rest of the town, seemed more interested in warmth, balance, and quiet order than in exact speed. Across the square, the slow tower face watched over the closed tables and dry fountain, and the square remained calm beneath it. One lane ran away from the square between houses painted in pale colors: soft cream, faded rose, light gray, and washed blue. Many of the windows had shutters, and along this lane several were painted the same deep blue as twilight just before dark. The shutters were closed now, each one marked by thin lines of shadow between the slats. Flower boxes beneath the windows held quiet leaves and a few pale blossoms that stayed open at night. The lane itself was paved with small stones, smoother in the middle where wheels had passed long ago, rougher at the edges where moss grew in the cracks. A street lamp at one end lit only part of the lane, leaving the far stretch dim and soft. From somewhere above came the faint sound of fabric moving lightly against a drying line. Then that sound stopped too. The lane felt held inside the town, not leading away from it, but folding deeper into it, where every corner and doorway seemed to keep the same easy, slow beat as the tower clock. Near the top of the hill stood a narrow house with a high window facing the square. The window was taller than the others around it and framed with pale stone. Behind the glass hung a single curtain, partly drawn to one side. A lamp inside lit a small upper room where a table stood under the window and shelves lined one wall. The room was quiet and plain. A bowl, a folded cloth, and a little vase with dried stems rested on the table. From that high window, the whole square could be seen, along with the slow movement of the clock hands. The room seemed made for watching without hurry. The lamp inside cast a warm square on the lane below, and that square remained in the same place while the clock hand above moved almost too slowly to notice. Nearby roofs stepped down the hill in neat layers. Beyond them, the canal reflected one lantern under the bridge, and beyond that lay the dark fields outside town. Yet the heart of the view was always the tower and the slow face of the clock. By midnight, the town had grown quieter still. Most windows were dark now. The bakery's backlight had gone out. The market street beyond the square was still as folded paper. Only the square lamps, the clock face, and a few windows on the hill remained lit. The dry fountain held a little rainwater at the bottom. and in that small pool, the tower face appeared upside down, pale and steady. The benches cast dark shapes on the stones. A little wind passed through once and moved the striped cafe awning. Then it was gone. The clock bell did not strike loudly. Its sound was soft and low, more like a deep note carried through stone than a bright metal ring. The note spread through the square, down the lanes, across the bridge, and into the houses, and then it faded. After that, the town seemed even calmer, as if it had listened and settled a little deeper into itself. Above it all, the slow hands continued their quiet crossing. At the far end of town, beyond a small gate in a low wall, a road ran out into the fields. By night, it looked pale under the moon, curving gently away past hedges and ditches. The road was empty. Fence posts lined part of it, and beyond them, the fields lay in long, dark shapes under the sky. Looking back from that road, the town seemed small and gathered close, its tower rising from the center. The square lamps looked like warm points, held together around the dry fountain. The roofs formed an uneven but peaceful line. The slow clock face was the brightest thing visible, not because it shone strongly, but because it remained so pale and clear against the dark sky. The road beyond the gate suggested movement and distance, yet the town behind it did not seem eager to follow. It looked content to remain gathered beneath its own slow measure of time, letting the road curve away while the tower stayed still in the center. Later in the night, moonlight strengthened and spread over the roofs. Tiles showed in thin rows. Chimneys cast short, dark bars. Gutters caught pale highlights. The clock tower stone looked cooler now, almost silver in places, and the clock face seemed flatter and brighter. Some of the little upper windows around the square reflected moonlight instead of lampglow. The canal, too, changed, carrying a cooler line along its surface where the moon reached between buildings. Even with these shifts in light, the town's arrangement stayed the same. Bench, fountain, awning, lamp, shutter, bridge, lane, roof, tower. The slow clock did not turn the town into something strange. It only made each familiar thing seem more settled, more complete in its own place. Under the moon, the whole town looked like a careful model made from stone, wood, cloth, and light, with the clock at its center, moving so gently that night itself seemed to slow around it. In the deep hour before dawn, the square became softer. The lamp circles grew less strong as the sky above the roofs changed from black blue to a lighter shade. One by one, the stars behind the tower faded. The slow clock face remained visible, though now less sharp against the sky. A faint mist gathered near the canal and under the bridge, turning the reflected lantern into a long, dim streak. The bench shadows softened. The dry fountain basin no longer looked dark, but gray. Somewhere in the lane of blue shutters, a curtain moved slightly, then became still again. The town did not wake all at once. It only loosened a little from night. Roof lines grew clearer. Flower boxes gained shape. The road beyond the gate turned pale again. Through all of this, the clock hands kept their gentle, careful path, moving no faster for morning than they had for midnight. The town below seemed to welcome that steady pace and to rise toward day without losing its calm. Dawn laid its first pale light across the high stones of the tower, and then down the faces of the houses around the square. The cream walls became warmer. The blue shutters softened. The awning stripes turned clearer. The paving stones of the square showed their old worn patterns. The fountain basin, still dry except for a little water at the bottom, reflected a pale patch of sky instead of the clock face now. The canal gained color, dark green-gray under the bridge, silvery where the open sky reached it. A bakery door opened quietly at the side lane, and warm light slipped out for a moment. Then the door closed again. A pigeon landed on the fountain rim and stayed there, looking around without hurry. The town's waking seemed shaped by the same slow order that had carried it through the night. Nothing leaped forward. Nothing clattered into motion. The square accepted the first light carefully, as if morning, too, had learned to move by the tower's gentle time. As daylight grew, the square became itself again in fuller detail. The bookshop window showed its green, blue, and brown books clearly. The cafe chairs and little tables looked ready for use, though still empty. The tailor's shutters remained closed, but a line of morning light touched their lower edge. The bakery side lane filled with the faint smell of bread. The clock face lost some of its glow and became a plain cream circle in daylight. Yet its hands still moved in the same slow way, unchanged by the new brightness. The dry fountain stood patient at the center. The benches waited. The square lamps, one by one, went out, leaving only daylight across the stones. Even without their warm circles, the square kept its calm balance. The town beneath the slow clock did not look sleepy. It looked complete, as if night and morning had passed through it without breaking its quiet shape. By full morning, the valley beyond the town was clear, the hill road pale, the fence line dark and neat, the canal bright under the bridge. The square was open and still. The clock tower rose above it, with the same calm face it had shown all night. The slow hands continued on their measured path, asking nothing, hurrying nothing. Below, the town remained gathered in its simple order of roofs, lanes, windows, awnings, steps, flower boxes, doors, and stone walls. The dry fountain held a little water and a pale strip of sky. The bookshop lamp was now off. The bakery doorway was open a little. A single chair outside the cafe had been moved into the square light. Yet even with these signs of day, the town kept its gentle pace. It was a place that seemed to live inside longer moments, where light lingered on stone and reflections lingered on water, and even the clock itself turned as if time were something to be carried carefully. And so the town stayed beneath the slow clock, quiet and steady, as morning spread softly across its square.